Our project is on the 1997 Asian financial crisis. We will first discuss the causes and consequences of this crisis, and proceed with some similarities with the 2008 financial crisis. Lastly, we will talk about some possible signs for future crises. Since the mid-1980s, Southeast Asian economies experienced a period of rapid economic growth, with GDP growing at 7 to 10%. The countries pursued a fast-track capitalism economic model that was characterized by heavy reliance on foreign investments. Many people refer to it as the Southeast Asian miracle. They did not know it back then. The same model led to the Asian financial crisis in 1997 and caused widespread recessions in Southeast Asian economies. The fast-track capitalism economic model made Southeast Asian economies vulnerable to capital flow shocks. When the market grew concerned regarding the ability of Thailand to pay off its foreign debt, capital flow turned from net inflow to outflow. George Soros' attack on the vulnerable situation ultimately led to the collapse of Taiwan. The externalities of this event further caused crises in other Southeast Asian and East Asian economies, resulting in currency depreciation, stock market devaluation, and falling asset prices.
So since we already had an idea of what happened in the 1997 Asian financial crisis, it is exactly triggered by the slam of Thai baht in 1997. So let's look at the cause of it. The first reason of Thai baht under high depreciation pressure is that Thailand has been experiencing economic slowdown since the early 1990s. Because Thailand has a high reliance on the foreign export, so when there's a sharp decline in semiconductor price in the early 1990s, the export forces are highly striking. And apart from that, Thai baht are forced to appreciate at the same time based on a lot of factors. First of all, because US started to raise its interest rate in the early 1990s to curb the inflation pace recession period, and also because Thai baht is pegged with the US dollar, so this has forced Thai baht to appreciate against other currencies. And apart from that, because RMB and Japanese yen also started to depreciate at this period, so it forced Thai baht to appreciate against these currencies as well, and even intensify this kind of appreciation effect. So when Thai baht becomes more expensive, the export and foreign investment seem more expensive at the same time, and it will reduce the foreign investors' incentive to conduct investment in Thailand and buy their export. So this has hindered the real economy in this case, and finally led to the foreign account deficit. The second reason is that there has formed asset bubble in both stock and housing sector in Thailand in the 1990s. Because in the 1980s, the Japan and four Asian tigers has upgraded their economic pattern and thus transfers the local industry to Thailand. This has the Thailand economy has been doing really well in the 1980s, and thus a lot of hot money flows into Thailand for investment, and thus it overcooked the economy and the stock market. In this case, the development of the property market further led to the high leverage and the growing foreign currency debt in Thailand, and thus it has laid high pressure on Thai baht depreciation.
Apart from the asset price bubble and the economic slowdown, East Asian countries have vulnerable financial systems. We shall elaborate from three perspectives. First, reliance on short-term foreign debt. Encouraged by fixed exchange rate, Asian countries borrow foreign debt extensively with exchange rate unhedged. Therefore, if the exchange rate is unflagged, liability will grow significantly in terms of local currency. Also, a high weight of debt was shorter, which could easily incur maturity mismatch and solvency problems. Another problem was low foreign currency reserves. By mid-1997, the ratio of short-term foreign debt to foreign currency reserves had reached 1.5 in Thailand, 1.7 in Indonesia, and 2.1 in Korea. Second, financial liberalization occurred in Asian countries during the 1990s, intensifying the systematic risk. Banks were allowed to borrow and lend in foreign currencies. However, the rapid credit expansion was of low quality due to lax regulations. By 1996, the proportion of non-performing loans had reached 30% in Thailand and Indonesia, and over 40% in Philippines. On the other hand, those banks were pretty undercapitalized, with capital adequacy ratio around 6 to 8% and lower than the proportion of non-performing loans. Third, the high corporate leverage. As reported by World Bank, by 1996, leverage for medium firm had reached 340% in Thailand, over 600% in Korea, compared to only 80% in the UK. Confronting the aforementioned three problems, domestic economic slump, asset price bubble, and the vulnerable financial system, Bank of Thailand and other central banks were in a dilemma about interest rate. The sluggish economic calls for an interest rate cut to alleviate company liabilities and encourage investment. However, a high interest rate could help curb the price bubble and also avoid an instant collapse of the financial system. In view of all the factors, Bank of Thailand decided to keep interest rate high, which further burdened the economy and eventually led to the debt crisis.
As for the consequence, I'll explain it in two different stages, the Asian stage and the international stage. For the Asian stage, the consequence has been shown in four different perspectives: the depreciation, the equity decline, the negative GDP growth, and the deflation in certain countries. For the depreciation, starting from July 1997, as foreign capitals fled from the Asian markets, it exerted a downward pressure on the currencies. As shown in this diagram, major Asian currencies have all experienced a considerable depreciation. As for the equity decline, due to the loss of foreign capital's confidence, this market has experienced the great drop in its equity market, as shown in the fifth column here, ranging from 18% to 55% loss. As for the GDP growth, due to the loss of foreign capitals, foreign investment, the GDP growth has shown a negative sign starting from 1997. Furthermore, countries who maintain the currency peg with US dollars has suffered deflation, particularly as we see here, Hong Kong. Hong Kong did not emerge from the deflation until the end of 2004. As for the international stage, the consequence has been shown in three different perspectives: the capital flow, equity, and bond. For the capital flow, as the capital returning from the Asian markets, as shown in this diagram, capital going back to its home country, and the capital returning from Asian market has bid up the bond price as shown in the next chart. Here we can see that starting from July 1997, the bond yield has been collapsed due to the massive capital returning from Asian market. Meanwhile, although equity market has suffered during July and the following August in 1997, along with the massive foreign capitals returning back from Asian market, the index has grown significantly along with the dot-com bubble, so it reached a new high in the 2000.
Now let's move on to similarities. So there are controversial monetary policies observed in the formation of both crises. So in Asia, most Southeastern Asian countries have their currency pegged to US dollars before the crisis. So the government had to keep increasing their interest rates to maintain the pegged exchange rate, despite that there are signs of economic slowdown in 1996. In the United States, the government adopted a low interest rate policy. So the Fed actually cut federal fund rate 13 times since late 2000. The policy had led to high liquidity and overheated financial and housing industry. And the government also failed to raise interest rates in time when the economy recovered. So deregulation and lack of supervision are also the common causes of the two crises. In Asia, there are deregulation in restriction on financial markets, which allowed large foreign capital inflow and sharp increase in financial institutions. The government also cancelled the limit on corporate loans and bank reserves, which allowed large amounts of loans invested in real estate markets. In the United States, there are select supervision on private rating agencies, which resulted in inaccuracy and inadequacy in risk assessment in financial innovation and newly emerged financial products. The lack of restriction on bank reserves, which allowed banks to have large amount of subprime lending and allow them to invest largely in mortgage-based securities. Moral hazard and high leverage were also observed in both crises. So in 1997 Asia, there was so-called crony capitalism. Banks and corporations, in relation to officials, would have access to low-cost loans from central banks. They believed that the government would bail them out in the time of crisis. With this mindset, they boldly take up loans and engaged in risky investments. While in the United States, banks sold their loans to government-sponsored enterprises to make more room for new loans in exchange for more profit. So investors also assumed that the United States government implicitly guaranteed insolvency of government-sponsored enterprises and large banks. So they also made risky decisions by taking up loans and investing heavily in the real estate and also its derivatives.
The existence of trade deficit and high proportion of external debt can also be observed in these two financial crises. In Asian financial crisis, since many countries, their currencies were pegged to the US dollar, the appreciation of the US dollar also increased the value of those currencies, which decreased their export and widened current trade deficit. And also, most Asian countries borrowed a huge amount of external debt to maintain their high growth of economics, which aggravated the impact of crisis. As for 2008 financial crisis, as we can see from the graph, the trade deficit of US peaked around 2008. The burgeoning US trade deficit served as a fuel for massive capital inflows from foreign central banks that encouraged the development of highly complicated and risky investment instruments. The trade surplus countries like China has accumulated a large amount of US dollars, which was used to purchase a great amount of US debt. Lastly and obviously, there is both housing bubble in the two financial crises. In the graph presented on the left, many East Asian countries experienced a housing bubble from 1996 to 1998. Real housing price index shifted up dramatically, and the bubble burst near the end of 1998. In 2008, the housing price peaked in early 2006, and on December 30, 2008, the real house price index reported its largest price drop in its history. The credit crisis resulted from the bursting of housing bubble.
We have listed out three possible signs predicting the next financial crisis. Global inflation rising faster than people expect, high volatility and depreciation of currencies, and the escalation of trade tensions or even a trade war. When the inflation rate rises more than people expected, the interest rate has to rise, and consequently there will be serious default. The worst case will be a sovereign default, where a sizable developed countries declare it will reschedule its debts. Italy is an obvious candidate, and Greece is also in danger. The second warning sign will be currency volatility. A surge in the dollar, a breakup of Eurozone, collapse of Chinese yuan or whatever, currency volatility is damaging in itself, for it can bankrupt businesses. It is also damaging as a symbol of a lack of faith in monetary institutions. As Bloomberg reported, there are $8 trillion in dollar-denominated emerging market corporate and sovereign debt. Of that, $249 billion must be repaid or refinanced through next year. It gets tougher and tougher for them to service the debt using their own currency when US dollar appreciates. The third possible sign would be escalation of trade tensions. Businesses who run world trades need certainty. Impulsive changes in policy increase the uncertainty and undermine the global prosperity. The economy slows down and even recession. We really need to take care about the relationship between the US and China and squabbles among other countries such as UK and European Union.